we have a very special Springbank from Moon Import. So again, visiting these old Italian bottlings that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
This is a 1993 distillate that was bottled in 2015.
Yeah.
So it's actually fairly modern compared to some of the stuff I've opened recently.
Yeah, you're actually born when this was bottled, which is unusual for some of the ones we've tried.
But 90s Springbank, quite an interesting time for such a well-known distillery. You were explaining to me that you kind of had a tough time in the 80s.
Yeah, they were mothballed for a good couple of years, which a lot of people aren't aware of.
Honestly, I can't believe I didn't know that. And then reopened in the late 80s. They didn't actually restart their own maltings until 92.
Right.
So between 89 and 92, they must have been getting maltings from elsewhere. So this is quite interesting. It's the first kind of full year back doing their own maltings. We know, what do we think about that in terms of their own maltings? That's kind of why people go crazy.
Yeah,
about
I
it,
think
right?
so. I think Springbank ticks so many boxes for people because it's, it's just very traditional and it's quite quirky and quite quaint. The whiskey's not the easiest drinking thing in the world. It's quite rough around the edges and it's quite sort of coastal and
unapologetically Springbank in the way that it has a bit of everything. It can be sweet and spicy and salty with a little bit of peat in there as well.
Quite an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I didn't love Springbank at first, and I even now there's some expressions where I struggle to see the hype.
I remember when I first started working in whiskey, if I asked 10 colleagues what their favourite distillery was, 8 of them would say Springbank.
Yeah.
And I really just couldn't get on board with it. It was really challenging for me and my palate. I'm not a big peaty whiskey guy in general. I've been getting more into Springbank. I've tried some of their older expressions where the peat dissipates a little bit as well. But I'm excited to see what this is going to be like. My understanding of them doing everything in-house means they're quite an inconsistent product.
Yeah.
Now, people and fans of Springbank would say beautifully inconsistent. It kind of changes every year. They use different casks, kind of different vattings of casks for even their core ranges. But really, the 10-year-old's the only bottle that I can go and get in a shop. And even then, it's really not that easy to get. No. Which has kind of put me off a little bit.
Yeah, I think older, you say like the 18 and the 21, each year is a different cask makeup, which is tricky for us with the Bevvy app when people are scanning them because they all look identical. You need to turn around and look at the laser code to see which year it is.
I think it's interesting because I want to drink the whiskey, I want to try the different casks, I want to do those comparisons we try them side by side. But it's almost become too valuable in the secondary market where I feel like it's not even worth the effort sometimes. An independently bottled Springbank, I never see.
Not anymore, no. Imagine this cask was probably bought before Springbank became cool, became as sought after as it is now.
And so Moon Import may also, at this point, it's hard to say, may have been the official version of bottlings for some distilleries, as well as an independent bottler. Yeah,
they had a relationship with some distilleries at various points in time.
And it became the export bottler for them, right?
Exactly, yeah. So the likes of Tam for example, they did all the bottling.
Yeah, so everything that was going into Italy just had to be came under those labels.
So this one, I imagine, is probably a cask that Moon Import have acquired at some stage and bottled for their anniversary, isn't it? Their 35th anniversary in 2015. In terms of casks, this will be matured in a hogshead. Which we love. One of only 300 bottles, very, very limited.
So this one really shouldn't be too cask influenced. We should see that natural, funky, kind of challenging Springbank character we're hoping to see. The label is a bit bonkers. I don't really know the story behind the label here, but they've just called it Lawless, which is interesting. But it's caught my eye.
Yeah, it's an interesting presentation.
Yeah, let's crack it open and see what we think. But it's cool to try a Springbank that's one of 300 bottles.
22 years old.
I'm not sure I even want to know how much these go for in the secondary market. Yeah. But I can't imagine there's many people opening them like we are.
No, we are a bit nuts in that.
But I hope it delivers,
Yeah, I think it's very easy to be underwhelmed by Springbank because it is so sort of.
There's so
much hype around it.
Big hype, yeah. A lot of fans.
Oh, here we go.
Excellent. I've actually got a modern cork as well.
Nice. Very vibrant on the nose, even just from pouring.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think this is going to be. I think this will be a winner.
So what strength are we looking at?
This is 45%.
But stuff that we've seen quite consistent.
Yeah, it's a nice drinking strength, actually. It's
Right, so straight away from the nose, I was expecting to get more peat and more smoke.
Yeah. There is that mustiness, though.
There is.
It's like old books and old furniture.
Perhaps a slight coastal fresh influence that could be coming from the hogshead. Although it doesn't jump out as overly sweet. It's quite muted. I think, you know, when we have a taste and come back to it, maybe the nose will open up a little bit.
Yeah, it's an intriguing nose. I think it's challenging. It's got layers to it. Sort of what you'd expect from nosing a Springbank.
But it is more subtle than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's like it looks like pencil shavings for me.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I get what you mean by old books. Yeah, kind of. And there is that dustiness you get from normally from older bottlings.
It's like sort of dampness as well. I mean, almost like a dunnage dampness.
I get you, yeah. Not overwhelming. I was looking for there to be some sweetness, some vanillas, some citrus from the hogshead, but I'm not getting much at the moment. I'm going to give it a little taste and hopefully that'll open it all up for me.
Quite hot for me.
It is.
45% and 22 years old. I'd expect it to be a lot more mellow than it is.
It doesn't present or taste as old as it is. Right? It tastes slightly younger. There's definitely a kind of white pepper on the palate, whether that's coming from the spirit or from the cask. I'm not 100%. And it's quite a drying finish as well.
Yeah. Doesn't linger a huge amount, the finish.
No.
It's very Springbank. I don't love it.
I thought it would be peatier. This seems like the peat after 22 years really has dissipated here. Well, we've tried a couple of older bottles of Long Row from Samaroli or Moon Import that have still kept that real big, heavy note, and we know that is slightly more heavily peated from the same distillery. But this is really mellowed. There isn't much smoke whatsoever on the palate.
I think bitterness on the finish as well, actually, which is sort of putting me off a little bit. It's quite dry.
Yeah, it's quite savoury, quite nutty. Going back to the palate now, there's maybe a little bit of kind of citrus rind, maybe almost like a bitter, like orange peel, as well as kind of classic malty notes that you expect from a bourbon cask. But I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't guess it as a Springbank personally. No. It's interesting because you're saying you kind of get the profile of the challenges from Springbanks, but the nose is quite muted and the palate is quite savoury, nutty.
Not sure.
It's a little astringent.
It's reminded me a little bit of almost like a Bruichladdich. It's kind of coastal without being, big and smoky.
It's funny. I wish there was a bit of peat going on here.
For me, it needs like an extra element. So whether it's a bit more peat or perhaps in like a sherry finish or something, just to give it. Yeah. I feel like the cask is probably going to be refill. I don't feel like it's contributed a huge amount to it.
Well, it's interesting. The notes have got kind of like grassy, and it says a bit tobacco. I really don't get much peat or smoke in it whatsoever. So I wish I got excited by that. I was like, a wee bit of tobacco would be good, but
grassiness I'm not really picking up.
No, I think it's quite mineral, quite coastal in the nose, but it is also damp and kind of musty, as you said.
Yeah.
And then the palate, nutty, malty.
Which are all tasting notes for people who aren't into whiskey. It's not going to sell it.
No, it's
damp and musty and mineral.
I wish it had a wee bit more kind of oomph, and we want whiskies that are big on flavour, and this has got flavour, but all the flavours are quite muted.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit underwhelmed by that one.
Me too. I would really struggle with this if it was sat on my shelf at home.
It's one that reads on paper, people will get so excited about on the secondary market, as we said. Springbank fans are crazy.
Yeah.
Almost cult-like.
Yeah, I think is this maybe an example of Springbank's inefficiencies and unpredictabilities? This is where it's not worked out.
I think it'd be quite interesting. It is a 93 distillate. They had just reopened and they had just got back to their floor maltings. We know they don't sell cask to bottlers very often. Maybe there's a reason for that. Perhaps this kind of allotment of casks that were sold for an export market were because they weren't of a great quality.
Yeah.
That's kind of trying to read into the history, but that would make sense to me. They'd just come out of a really difficult period. They were trying to get back on their feet. obviously getting their floor maltings up would have cost a lot of money, getting back to doing everything by hand. I think it's just not very high quality
I think
cask.
Springbank as a spirit as well is quite volatile. I feel like for it, I can imagine it, the quality of the whiskey sort of peaking at a point, and then it can be overcooked. And I wonder if, you know, selling to indie bottlers, obviously you run the risk that, you know, you lose control of when it's going to be bottled.
Yeah.
Are they going to bottle it too early? Is it going to be too late? For me, I don't feel this has benefited from 22 years.
I agree. Unfortunately, amazing to get to open it, and a real conversation point and an interesting period in their history. I'm sure we've got lots of Springbank fans watching as well, so they can let us know what they think of Springbank now, if they had some older bottlings as well.
It's not a popular opinion to criticise.
It really isn't. People are like, what are they talking about? It's a 22-year-old Springbank. You know, they're going crazy.
Whiskey is subjective. As we often say, it depends on your mood, depends on the weather.
And we often say it's surprising for us to agree. So it must be disappointing if we're both agreeing that.
Yeah, on that note, I actually love it. It's the best whiskey I've ever had. Yeah, really good. But no, it's, as you say, it's fun to try, but it shows that not all Springbank is sent from the heavens.
No, not all. It's certainly not life-changing. Thanks for letting us try it. Something interesting. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Bevvy content. We want to hear what you think, your best whiskey experiences, the whiskies you want us to try. It's a really exciting journey we're on, so make sure to join us. Download the Bevvy app on Google Play and App Store to keep track of your whiskey journey, connect with your whiskey friends, keep track of your favourites, anything you could ever want to do with whiskey, all in one place. It's the definitive whiskey companion.